I stared at the evidence spread across my dining room table and knew without a doubt that she had planned this betrayal for months. My jaw clenched as I realized how deliberately I'd been manipulated. My name is Mike Brody, and I'm 35 years old. Each morning, I wake before dawn in the empty Columbus home where I still smell traces of her perfume. Shane Brody, my wife of 8 years, didn't just leave. She calculated an exit designed to take everything I'd built. My contractor business, our savings, even my dignity were all targets in her elaborate scheme to finance her better life. I won't rage or collapse like she expected. Instead, I'll ensure justice is served with the same precision I bring to every house I build. Some people mistake composure for weakness. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from. And make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. I'd spent most evenings this way for years. Spreadsheets, invoices, and my calculator spread across the kitchen table. The May sunset pushed long shadows through the blinds as I double-checked measurements for a bathroom remodel in Upper Arlington. Numbers never lied to me, and I found comfort in their predictability. Every column balanced, every estimate accurate. That was my world. The front door opened, then closed with a soft click. Shane's heels clicked against the hardwood, then stopped at the kitchen entrance. I looked up. Something was different. She wore dark jeans, a cream blouse, and a light jacket. Clothes for going places, not coming home. Her normally perfect makeup looked freshly applied at 7:30 p.m. My stomach tightened. "We need to talk, Mike." Her voice carried an unfamiliar edge. I set my pencil down. "Okay." She remained standing, fingers fidgeting with her purse strap. "I can't do this anymore." "Do what?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "This. All of this." She gestured around our kitchen, the beige walls we'd painted together 4 years ago, the oak cabinets I'd installed myself. I feel trapped, like I'm suffocating in routine. I folded my hands on top of the papers. "Where's this coming from?" She sighed, a rehearsed sound. "It's been building for a long time. I want to travel. I want excitement. I want to stop counting receipts and measuring life in mortgage payments." The kitchen clock ticked loudly between us. I remembered picking it out together at a craft fair in Hocking Hills. The vendor had told us it would keep perfect time for 50 years. We were only on year 6. "We built this life together," I reminded her. "We chose this, together." She shook her head, blonde hair swaying. "You chose it. I just followed along." The statement hit me like a hammer to the chest. 8 years of marriage reduced to her following along. "I want to feel alive again, Mike. I want choices." Her eyes darted toward the window, already looking beyond our home. "You want a divorce, not a vacation," I said, the words falling heavy between us. She didn't deny it. "I don't know what I want except something different." I remembered when she used to say I was all she wanted. The memory tasted bitter now. "You have a good job, friends, a beautiful home," I said, gesturing to the kitchen where we'd hosted countless dinner parties. "What's really going on here, Shane?" "Nothing's going on. I'm just tired of predictability." Her voice hardened. "Tired of knowing exactly how every day will unfold before it even begins." I'd always thought stability was something to be proud of. The consistency I'd built for us, the same consistency that allowed her to buy designer clothes and take weekend trips with her friends, suddenly became my greatest failure. The silence stretched between us. I could argue, plead, demand answers, but something told me she'd already made up her mind. Her suitcase was probably already packed, tucked away in her closet. She gathered her purse closer to her side. "I need some space to figure things out." "Space," I repeated. The contractor in me wanted to measure exactly how much space she needed, in square feet, in miles, in light years maybe. "Yes, space." She shifted her weight. "This doesn't have to be ugly." But it already was. The ugliness just hadn't fully revealed itself yet. I studied my wife's face, the face I'd woken up to for 8 years, and realized I was looking at a stranger. "I'll sleep in the guest room tonight," she said. "I have some things to sort out." I nodded, not trusting my voice anymore. She turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. "It's time for new beginnings," she murmured, more to herself than to me. After she left, I sat motionless at the kitchen table. The house creaked and settled around me as darkness gathered. The numbers on my invoices blurred. That night I lay awake listening to the unfamiliar sound of silence from the other side of the wall. Around 4 a.m. I heard the distinct zip of a suitcase closing, followed by soft footsteps down the stairs. I didn't get up. Morning sunlight streamed through the blinds, illuminating the empty side of our bed where her pillow remained perfectly fluffed. Her nightstand was cleared of the framed photos and jewelry dish. The closet door stood slightly ajar, revealing gaps where her favorite clothes had been. So it begins, I whispered to the empty room. I woke up at 6 the next morning out of pure habit. No alarm needed. 8 years of the same routine had programmed my body better than any clock. For a moment, in that hazy space between sleep and consciousness, everything felt normal. Then reality crashed in. The house was too quiet. No shower running, no radio playing those morning talk shows she loved. Just silence and the weight of emptiness pressing down. I got up and pulled on a t-shirt. My feet found their way to the kitchen on autopilot. The coffee maker waited on the counter, our wedding gift from her parents. I measured the grounds, filled the water reservoir, and hit start. The familiar gurgle was suddenly the loudest sound in the world. While it brewed, I stood in the center of my kitchen, seeing it through new eyes. Her travel mug was gone from the drying rack. The fruity protein powder she used for breakfast smoothies was missing from the counter. Little absences that screamed. I poured coffee into my mug, a chipped blue one with "World's Okayest Husband" printed on it, her joke gift from 2 Christmases ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. Steam rose as I walked through the living room. The blanket she always curled under during movie nights was folded precisely on the arm of the couch. She'd never folded it that way before. It was her final act of tidying up a life she no longer wanted. I inhaled deeply, catching the fading scent of her perfume, something expensive with vanilla notes that she'd splurged on last month. The bottle was gone from her vanity. Another little thing taken, another absence noted. Setting my coffee down, I pulled out my laptop and logged into our bank accounts. The screen confirmed what I already suspected. 3 withdrawals in the past week. Nothing massive, she wasn't stupid, but enough to notice. 800 here, 600 there. Building a cushion for her new chapter. My contractor's brain kicked in. When foundation problems appear, you don't wait to act. You shore things up immediately before the whole structure is compromised. I opened a new tab and logged into our credit card portal. 2 new charges from yesterday, a hotel downtown, and a meal at some place I'd never heard of. I clicked Report Card Lost or Stolen and selected Issue Replacement Card. The system asked if I wanted to send it to the same address. I checked yes. The card would come to me, not her. Next, I called the bank. 20 minutes on hold, listening to generic jazz while the knot in my stomach tightened. Finally, a representative came on the line. "I need to freeze my joint account and credit line," I explained. "My wife and I are separating." The woman on the phone expressed manufactured sympathy, then walked me through the process. Yes, I understood this affected both parties. Yes, I was aware of the implications. No, I didn't want to reconsider. After hanging up, I called every utility company. Electric, water, cable, cell phones. One by one, I removed her name from the accounts, or switched billing responsibility. Each call was another small cut, but necessary ones. My finger hovered over my accountant's contact. Eli Turner had handled my books for years. He knew every detail of my business finances. If anyone could help me track and document what happened next, it was him. "Eli, it's Mike Brody. Got a minute?" I explained the situation in as few words as possible. "Jesus, Mike, I'm sorry to hear that." His voice was professional but concerned. "I need you to flag any irregular charges, transfers, anything that doesn't fit my normal patterns. Can you do that?" "Already on it," he replied. "I'll set up alerts and start a separate file. You might want to pull your credit report too, just in case." "Thanks, Eli, I appreciate it." After we hung up, I grabbed my truck keys. I needed to see something for myself. 30 minutes later, I was driving slowly past a downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows and a doorman. The kind of place that charged you for the view more than the square footage. According to her latest Instagram post, this was her new home base. I didn't go inside, I just needed to confirm it was real. Back home, I opened her social media profile on my laptop. There it was, a rooftop photo taken at sunset, cocktail in hand, the city lights just starting to twinkle below. The caption read, "New chapter, no limits." I took a screenshot, saved it to a new folder labeled documentation, then repeated the process with every post she'd made in the last month. Evidence, timestamps, locations. For the next several hours, I gathered and organized receipts, bank statements, property documents. Our entire financial history laid bare on my dining room table. Near midnight, my eyes burning from staring at screens and fine print, I finally shut my laptop. "You wanted options, Shane," I muttered to the empty room. "You're about to find out what that means." 2 days later, I pulled into the job site parking lot while the sky was still dark purple. My truck's headlights caught dust particles hanging in the air, swirling like tiny ghosts. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours. The coffee in my travel mug was already cold. I sat for a moment, watching the sunrise creep over the half-finished office building my crew was renovating. The foundation was solid. The frame was true. Everything else could be fixed or replaced. I'd built my entire career on that principle. My phone buzzed against the cup holder. Eli's name flashed on the screen. "Morning, Eli." "Mike." His voice was tight, controlled. "I've got that alert we set up. There was a transfer yesterday afternoon, $8,000 from your joint savings to an outside account." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "What account?" "It's linked to some boutique on Fifth Avenue. Looks like they're holding it as store credit. 8,000. The exact amount I'd set aside for new equipment for the business." Of course she'd know that. She'd heard me talk about it for months. "Document it," was all I said. "Already done. I've time-stamped it and added it to the file." Eli paused. "Mike, I know this is personal, but as your accountant, I'm recommending you get legal counsel immediately." "Already on it. Meeting with someone tonight." "Good, because this isn't just a bad marriage anymore. This is financial sabotage." After hanging up, I grabbed my hard hat and walked onto the site. For the next 10 hours, I lost myself in work, measuring, cutting, planning, building, problems I could solve, materials I understood. By 5 o'clock, I was in downtown Columbus, parking outside a glass office building that housed Shaw Legal Services. The receptionist led me to a conference room where Misha Shah was already waiting, a slim folder open on the polished table. "Mr. Brody." She stood to shake my hand. Her grip was firm, her gaze direct. "Thank you for coming in. I've reviewed the preliminary notes you sent over. Call me Mike." I took the seat across from her. "And thank you for seeing me on short notice." She nodded, folding her hands on the table. "Why don't you tell me what's happening and we'll go from there?" I laid it all out. Shane's departure, the missing funds, the social media declarations of independence. Misha listened without interruption, occasionally making notes in precise handwriting. 8,000 just disappeared today, I finished. My accountant confirmed it. "And you're certain she's not coming back? This isn't a trial separation?" I pulled out my phone and showed her Shane's Instagram. A new post from that morning. "Living my truth. No compromises. No apologies." The photo showed champagne glasses on a marble countertop. "She's rewriting our history," I said. According to her new story, I held her back, kept her small. Now she's free. Misha's expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened slightly. "Here's what we're going to do. File for divorce immediately. Document every expenditure she makes with marital funds post-separation. Ohio is an equitable distribution state, which means the court divides property fairly, not necessarily equally." She pulled out a folder of paperwork. "If we can show a pattern of financial waste, the court will consider that during asset division." "And the 8,000? That's dissipation of assets. Legally problematic for her, especially if we can prove she knew you needed it for your business." I nodded, a small weight lifting. Having a plan, any plan, made breathing easier. "I'll need bank statements, credit card records, property documentation, and a list of all accounts, joint and separate," Misha said, sliding a form toward me. I pulled a flash drive from my pocket. "Everything's here. Organized by date and account." A flicker of approval crossed her face. "That will help considerably." For the next hour, we went through paperwork. I signed where indicated, initialed amendments, provided additional details when asked. Through it all, Misha's calm efficiency was oddly comforting. "Stay steady, Mike," she said as we finished. "The truth will speak louder than her story." By the time we wrapped up, dusk had fallen. I drove home past the glittering downtown skyline, imagining Shane somewhere in those towers, high above the city, burning through her future one cocktail at a time. 1 week slipped by in a blur of invoices and blueprints. Saturday morning arrived with no job sites demanding my attention, leaving me with empty hours I didn't know how to fill. The house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I made coffee and settled at the kitchen counter, opening Instagram against my better judgment. Shane's profile loaded instantly. She'd been busy. The feed was a carefully curated highlight reel. Rooftop dinners with city lights twinkling below. Designer outfits posed just so. Champagne glasses raised in elegant toasts. In every shot, she was smiling that particular smile she reserved for photos. Head tilted, eyes narrowed slightly, confidence radiating like heat. To anyone scrolling past, she looked unstoppable. Free. Living the dream life she'd always wanted. I took a longer sip of coffee and looked closer. The Gucci bag appeared in 3 different spontaneous posts. Same outfit, different backgrounds. The same 2 or 3 people kept appearing, women with perfect makeup and men in tailored suits, all tagged with vague captions about amazing connections and powerful networks. "Remember how your mom would tell you to always wear clean underwear in case you got in an accident?" That was Shane's approach to social media. Always look successful in case reality came calling. I closed the app and opened my banking portal instead. The joint accounts, now mostly empty, showed scattered activity. Small deposits that vanished within hours to cover minimum payments. Overdraft notifications. Automatic withdrawals failing for insufficient funds. The paper trail was growing, just not in Shane's favor. My phone buzzed with a text from my foreman about Monday's project schedule. Work, reliable, predictable work. I responded with timeline adjustments and materials orders, grateful for the distraction. That afternoon I drove to the hardware store, then spent hours in the garage organizing tools and prepping for the week ahead. The rhythm of sorting, labeling, and planning settled my mind. By evening, everything was in its proper place. A small victory in a life suddenly filled with disorder. Back when we first got married, Shane used to tease me about my organization habits. "You're the only person I know who alphabetizes their spices," she'd laugh. Back then, it had been affectionate. Later, it became ammunition. "You're too controlled, Mike, too predictable." Funny how the qualities that once made me dependable later made me boring. I never changed. Her perspective did. Sunday morning, I woke to an email notification from Misha Shah. The subject line read simply, "Service confirmed." I opened it immediately. "Mr. Brody," it began. "This confirms that divorce paperwork was successfully served to Shane Brody yesterday afternoon at 3:47 p.m. She was located at Café Moderne and accepted service without incident. Please note that she now has 28 days to respond formally through legal counsel. I'll keep you updated on any developments. Regards, Misha Shah." So it was done. The legal machinery was now in motion. I checked Instagram before I could stop myself. Shane had already posted, not about the papers, of course, but a carefully worded quote against a sunset background. Sometimes the bravest thing is to release what no longer serves your growth. Our freedom, reinvention, dar my journey. Beneath it, comments from her new circle. "So proud of you. Living your best life. You deserve everything." I screenshotted it and saved it to the folder I'd labeled Post-Separation Statements. Every post, every public declaration, all documented and time-stamped. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, this is Mike." "Mr. Brody? This is Amanda from Columbus Credit Union. I'm calling regarding Mrs. Brody's outstanding balance on your joint line of credit." I took a deep breath. "What balance would that be?" "There's an outstanding amount of $3,650, past due as of last week." "I see. And when was this amount charged?" "The last transaction was made on the 18th at Luxday Spa, 2 days after she left." I made a note on the pad beside me. "Thank you for letting me know. I'll have my attorney contact you tomorrow regarding that account. Another call to document. Another thread in the tapestry Shane was weaving. Not of freedom, but of financial recklessness. That night I updated my growing file. Each entry was methodical, each detail precise, like setting nails into a frame, one by one, securing the structure that would eventually support everything. Just as I was closing my laptop, an email notification appeared. From Misha. Court date confirmed. 3 weeks from today, 9 a.m. Please confirm your availability. I typed a quick response. Confirmed. I'll be there. Then I sat back and exhaled slowly. The confrontation was set. After weeks of digital distance and financial shadowboxing, we would finally face each other across a courtroom. The date was circled on my calendar now, a deadline, an ending, and maybe, finally, a beginning. 3 weeks later, the day of reckoning. I adjusted my tie in the courthouse bathroom mirror, smoothing down the collar of my best suit, the one I wore to business meetings when I needed to impress clients. Today wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about standing my ground. Misha Shah waited for me in the lobby, tablet in hand, looking calm and collected in her charcoal pantsuit. Her hair was pulled back tight, not a strand out of place. She nodded when she saw me. "Ready?" she asked. "As I'll ever be." We stood side by side, reviewing last-minute details. The marble floor gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. People moved around us, other lives, other stories, but my focus narrowed to the double doors. That's when I saw her. Shane walked in like she was entering a cocktail party rather than a divorce hearing. White blazer, designer jeans, heels that clicked sharply against the floor. Her hair was freshly highlighted, face perfectly made up. She paused at the entrance, scanning the lobby until she spotted me. For a moment I saw a flicker of uncertainty cross her face. Then the mask slipped back into place, chin up, shoulders back, a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. She walked toward us with a confidence that seemed more like armor than attitude. "Mike," she said, stopping a few feet away. Her perfume, the expensive one she'd started wearing after she left, drifted between us. I nodded but said nothing. She glanced at Misha, then back to me. "I was hoping we could talk before this starts." Her voice was lower now, meant just for me. "Let's not make this ugly." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the calculation behind her eyes. This wasn't remorse. This was strategy. "It already is," I replied quietly. Her lawyer appeared behind her, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit who looked like he charged by the breath. He placed a hand on Shane's elbow, guiding her toward the courtroom doors. "Show time," Misha murmured. The courtroom felt smaller than I'd imagined. Wood paneling, American flag, the judge's bench looming at the front. We settled at our table while Shane and her attorney took the one opposite. She kept her eyes forward, back straight, playing the role of dignified, wronged party. Judge Peterson entered, a woman in her 60s with silver-rimmed glasses and an expression that suggested she'd heard every excuse imaginable. "All rise." The proceedings moved quickly after that. Misha was methodical, presenting exhibit after exhibit with precision. Bank statements showing transfers made after the separation date, credit card charges for boutiques, spas, restaurants, screenshots of social media posts flaunting a lifestyle funded by accounts in my name. "As you can see, Your Honor," Misha said, "Mrs. Brody transferred $8,000 from the joint account 2 days after leaving the marital home. This was followed by purchases totaling over $12,000 in the following 3 weeks. Shane's attorney argued that she was entitled to marital assets, that her spending was no different than mine. My client felt neglected in the marriage," he said smoothly. Mr. Brody's focus on his business left her isolated. Her spending was merely an attempt to establish independence. Misha didn't even blink. "We have time-stamped evidence showing Mrs. Brody's purchases began immediately after declaring her intention to leave. Purchases explicitly for her independent life, not the marriage. This isn't about emotional neglect. It's about financial misappropriation." The judge studied the documents, occasionally glancing up at Shane, who maintained her composure but couldn't hide the slight tension in her jaw. "Mrs. Brody," Judge Peterson finally said. You state in your filing that you left the marriage seeking independence. Yet these records suggest you remained financially dependent on your husband's assets. Can you explain this contradiction? Shane shifted in her seat. I was transitioning to independence, Your Honor. These were necessary expenses to establish myself. At Mr. Brody's expense? After stating your marriage was over? Shane had no answer for that. When the judge delivered her ruling, the words seemed to echo in the quiet courtroom. Having reviewed all evidence presented, this court finds in favor of the petitioner, Michael Brody. All marital assets shall remain with Mr. Brody, including the home, business assets, and remaining savings. Mrs. Brody will retain responsibility for all debts incurred after the date of separation. I watched Shane's face as reality sank in. The perfect posture crumpled slightly. Her lawyer leaned over to whisper something, but she just stared straight ahead, blinking rapidly. It was over. Outside the courthouse, Misha closed her briefcase with a soft click. That went well, she said simply. The sun felt warmer somehow, the air clearer. I looked up at the blue Ohio sky, then back at my attorney. Justice doesn't need applause, Misha added, adjusting her glasses. I nodded, feeling the weight of the past weeks beginning to lift. That's chapter 1 closed, I said quietly. A week after the court hearing, I was still at the Westbrook renovation until almost midnight. The portable construction lights cast long shadows across the unfinished floor as I measured trim for the master bedroom. The Johnson family wanted everything perfect, and perfect takes time. The whine of my saw echoed through the empty house. I'd sent the crew home hours ago, but I needed the quiet to think through the details. After finishing a cut, I heard the crunch of tires on gravel outside. Probably teenagers looking for a place to hang out. It happened sometimes with these properties on the edge of town. I kept working, but then came the sound of car doors and footsteps, uneven, struggling steps. Someone was walking up the temporary plywood ramp to the front entrance. I set my saw down, wiped sawdust from my hands, and turned toward the doorway. Shane stood there, silhouetted against the darkness. She wore a cream-colored blazer over a silk blouse, designer jeans, and those ridiculous high heels she always insisted on wearing, now coated in construction dust. Her hair was styled in loose waves that probably cost more than I'd spent on dinner all week. But something about her face seemed different, harder, more desperate. Mike, she said, her voice sharp with false confidence, the kind that comes from a couple of drinks before a confrontation. I didn't answer right away, just watched as she took another step inside, heels clicking against the subfloor. You're cutting me off? She demanded. Really? I set down my measuring tape. Hello to you too, Shane. Don't act like this is normal, she snapped, gesturing around the empty construction site. I've been calling your office for 3 days. Eli won't take my calls. Eli works for me, not you. I leaned against the sawhorse. And I instructed him not to speak with you about financial matters. That's what your lawyer's for. Her laugh was bitter, shaky. My lawyer says there's nothing left to discuss. That everything's frozen or transferred, that all my credit cards are canceled. That's correct. She stepped closer, and I could smell her perfume now, mixed with whiskey. You can't cut me off like this. We were married for 8 years. You cut yourself off, I said calmly. You packed a suitcase, remember? You wanted independence. This is what independence looks like. I didn't think you'd be this cruel. I'm being consistent, Shane. You wanted out. You got out. All of it. She ran a hand through her hair, messing up the perfect waves. What am I supposed to do? My lease is up next month, and they're raising the rent. I can't. She stopped herself, pride fighting with desperation. Not my problem, I said. The words came out easily, surprising even me. You wanted a life without me in it. I'm respecting that choice. This isn't respect, it's revenge. Her voice echoed through the empty rooms. I shook my head. If I wanted revenge, I would have done a lot more than just protect what's mine. Shane's eyes filled with tears, but I'd seen this performance before. The trembling lip, the vulnerability that appeared precisely when it served her interests. I'll land on my feet, she said, chin lifting. I always do. I'm sure you will, I replied. But gravity's a law, not a suggestion. The words hung in the cold air between us. For a moment, something real flashed in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or the first genuine realization that actions have consequences. Then she was turning away, heels clacking unevenly as she made her way back down the plywood ramp. I followed at a distance, watching as she climbed into her leased BMW. The engine growled, tires hissed over gravel, and I stood there as her taillights disappeared down the unlit road. The night seemed quieter after she left. I walked back inside, looking up at the half-built ceiling where we'd installed support beams earlier that day. Structural integrity. You can't fake it or force it. It has to be built right from the start. You can't fake foundations, I said to the empty room. I picked up my measuring tape and went back to work. December hit Columbus like a cold slap. The temperature dropped, the skies turned steel gray, and that familiar Midwestern chill settled into your bones if you stayed outside too long. I didn't mind it. Winter always felt honest to me. No false promises, just the truth of what was coming. I was finishing up some interior trim work for a client when my phone buzzed. The name surprised me. Rachel Lanning. We hadn't spoken since before Shane left. Rachel and her husband used to live next door to us, came to our summer cookouts, borrowed our ladder when they needed to clean gutters. Nice people, the kind who wave from their driveway but respect boundaries. Rachel, I said, wedging the phone between my ear and shoulder while I measured a piece of crown molding. Been a while. Hi, Mike. Her voice had that hesitant quality people get when they're about to deliver uncomfortable news. I hope I'm not bothering you. Not at all. What's up? She paused. I saw Shane yesterday. My hand stilled on the measuring tape. Oh? Yeah. Outside that little retail space on Broad Street? The one that used to be a florist? She was arguing pretty intensely with some man. I think he was the landlord. I set the tape down. What were they arguing about? I couldn't hear everything, but it sounded like she hadn't paid rent in months. He was telling her the locks had been changed and something about her merchandise being held until she settled her account. Rachel's voice lowered. Mike, she looked rough. Not like herself. Thanks for letting me know, I said, keeping my tone neutral. I just thought, well, I know things ended badly, but I appreciate the call, Rachel, really. After hanging up, I sat there for a moment, turning the information over in my mind. Shane had been talking about opening a boutique for years. Designer clothes, accessories, the kind of place where everything costs 3 times what it should. Apparently she'd actually done it, and apparently it had failed. That night, I did some digging. The Ohio Secretary of State's website confirmed it. Brody Lux LLC had been administratively dissolved for failure to file annual reports and pay taxes. Founded 8 months ago, right around when Shane left. Dissolved 3 weeks ago. I remembered how excited she'd get talking about her business plan, sketching logos on napkins, showing me photos of stores in New York and LA she wanted to emulate. I'd always encouraged her, thinking it was just a dream she enjoyed nurturing. Now I wondered if she'd been planning her exit all along, believing her boutique would fund her new, independent life. The next day, I drove past her downtown apartment building. Sure enough, there were notices taped to the door of Unit 803, bright orange eviction papers, a formal letter from management, and a final warning from the utility company. Even from the street, I could see the place was empty through the uncurtained windows. Back home, I pulled out the file of finalized divorce papers that had arrived last week. The judgment was clear. The house, the business, the savings, all legally mine. Shane had walked away with personal possessions and nothing more. At the time, I'd felt a grim satisfaction. Now, looking at those papers, I felt something else. Not regret, exactly. Just the weight of it all. My email pinged. Shane's name appeared in my inbox with the subject line, "Please read." I opened it against my better judgment. Mike, I know I'm the last person who should ask you for anything, but I'm in a temporary situation and need help with transitional costs. Just enough to get back on my feet. I promise I'll pay you back. S. I deleted it without replying. Then I called Misha. Mike, she answered crisply. What can I do for you? Shane's boutique has folded. She's been evicted from her apartment. She's asking me for money. Misha made a small sound that might have been sympathy. I'm not surprised. Her credit accounts are all in default according to the last financial disclosure. Collections have likely begun. Should I be concerned about anything legally? No, Misha said firmly. The divorce is final. Her financial difficulties are her own. You have no obligation. After we hung up, I stood by the window watching the first real snowfall of the season begin. Tiny flakes drifted down, slowly at first, then faster, beginning to cover everything in clean white. For a moment, I felt a flicker of empathy for Shane. I knew what it was like to struggle, to count pennies. Then I remembered her face in court, the sneer when Misha presented our evidence, the cold certainty that she still deserved half of everything despite walking out. The fall always finds its level. I murmured to the empty room as the snow continued to fall outside my window. 3 weeks after the snow began, the storms arrived. February in Ohio means gray skies that crack open without warning, dumping rain that freezes overnight and turns everything treacherous by morning. I'd spent the day reinforcing a roof on Mrs. Caldwell's Century home. She was 82 and worried about leaks. By the time I finished, my shoulders ached and my fingers were stiff from cold. The forecast called for more rain, maybe even sleet. I stopped at Kroger on my way home grabbing essentials, bread, coffee, something simple for dinner. The wind picked up as I pulled into my driveway, rain drumming against the truck's roof in sheets. I gathered my grocery bags, hunched my shoulders against the weather, and made a dash for the porch. That's when I saw her. Shane sat huddled on the top step, her back against the railing. Her hair, darker now, the blonde grown out, hung in wet ropes around her face. The rain had soaked through her thin jacket, and she shivered visibly, arms wrapped around herself as if trying to hold something together. I froze mid-step. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the steady drumbeat of rain against the porch roof. "Mike," she said finally. Her voice was small, nothing like the confident tone she'd used when she'd walked out months ago. I made mistakes. I shifted the grocery bags in my arms. You made choices. Her eyes, once bright with dreams and defiance, looked hollow now. Dark circles smudged beneath them like bruises. She'd lost weight. Her cheekbones stood out sharp against skin that looked pale and tight. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Just for tonight. Maybe a few days. Until I get back on my feet." The words were eerily similar to her email, the one I'd deleted without responding. I stood there in the rain, groceries growing heavier in my arms, remembering the night she left. The dismissive way she'd looked around our home, the curl of her lip when she said it all felt so small. "The last time you were here, you said you were done living small," I reminded her. "Said you needed more than this." Her lip trembled. Rain dripped from her chin onto her jacket. "Please, Mike, I don't have anywhere to go." For a second, just a second, I felt the old pull, the instinct to protect her, to fix whatever was broken. We'd been together almost a decade. You don't just erase that history even when someone walks away from it. But I remembered too clearly the methodical way she'd emptied our accounts, the lies in court, the cold calculation behind her leaving. I stepped around her and unlocked my front door. "You wanted a better life, Shane," I said quietly. "You found it." She started to cry then, not the theatrical tears she'd tried in court, but something broken and real. Rain mingled with tears on her cheeks. I set down my groceries just inside the door and reached for the emergency blanket I keep in the hall closet. Then I went to the drawer where I'd placed the list of local shelters Misha had given me weeks ago, just in case this moment ever came. Opening the door just wide enough, I handed both items to her. "That's the only help you're getting from me," I said, and closed the door softly. I stood there in my entryway, listening to the rain beat against the siding. My hand remained on the doorknob, and I felt a strange calm settle over me. The anger that had fueled me for months, through the divorce proceedings, through the financial untangling, had faded to something quieter. Not forgiveness exactly, but a release. Through the door, I heard her sob once, then silence. Finally, footsteps descending the porch stairs, splashing through puddles, growing fainter as she walked away. I carried my groceries to the kitchen and put them away, movements automatic and familiar. The house felt peaceful, not empty like it had when she first left, but settled. like a place that belonged entirely to me. Outside, the rain continued falling. I thought of Shane walking through it, blanket pulled around her shoulders, shelter list clutched in her hand. Some lessons only sink in when you're cold, I murmured, and turned to make dinner in my quiet kitchen. 6 months later, I stepped out onto my porch, coffee mug warming my palms. Spring had finally pushed winter back, and morning sunlight spilled across the wooden boards I'd refinished just last weekend. The birds were making a racket in the maple tree out front, building nests, staking territory, doing what living things do when they're focused on the future instead of the past. I settled into the Adirondack chair I'd built during those first empty weekends after Shane left. Back then, I'd needed something to occupy my hands while my mind processed the betrayal. Now I just enjoyed the solid comfort of something I'd made myself. The neighborhood was quiet this early, just a few cars heading out for work. Mrs. Donovan from across the street waved as she collected her newspaper. Life had found its rhythm again, steady, predictable, peaceful. All the things Shane had once called boring. I took a long sip of coffee and let the steam warm my face. Remember when making coffee used to be an argument? Shane always complained I made it too strong, but never bothered learning to make it herself. Funny how the small irritations fade once you realize they were actually warning signs. Word gets around in Columbus, especially in contractor circles. We're the invisible workforce in people's homes, catching snippets of gossip while we install cabinets or repair drywall. That's how I heard about Shane's situation, in bits and pieces over the past few months. According to Dave at the lumberyard, Shane had been staying with Melissa Porter, her friend with the downtown condo who'd encouraged her independence journey. That arrangement lasted until Shane couldn't contribute to rent. Then it was couch surfing with diminishing returns. Each friend's hospitality stretched thinner than the last. 2 weeks ago, Terry mentioned seeing her at the bus station downtown, belongings stuffed into a single duffel bag. The designer clothes were long gone, sold or pawned. Her social media accounts had gone dark. The woman who'd once posted daily inspiration quotes about living your best life had disappeared from public view completely. I didn't seek these updates out, but I didn't shut them down either. Each piece of information settled something inside me. Not satisfaction exactly, but confirmation that actions have consequences, that reality eventually collects its debts. The sound of tires on gravel pulled me from my thoughts. A sleek black sedan rolled into my driveway, and Misha Shaw stepped out, briefcase in hand. Her tailored pantsuit and practical heels were a stark contrast to the casual Saturday morning. "Mike," she called, striding up the walkway. "Sorry to drop by unannounced. I was in the neighborhood for another client and thought I'd deliver these personally." I stood to greet her. "No problem. Coffee? I'd love some." Inside, I poured her a mug and we sat at my kitchen table. Misha laid her briefcase flat and extracted a manila envelope. "The final divorce decree," she said, sliding it toward me. "All appeals periods have expired. Everything is officially, irrevocably complete." I opened the envelope and thumbed through the documents. Page after page of legal language that boiled down to one simple truth. The chapter was closed. "Thank you," I said, meaning it. Not just for handling the case, but for making sure it was done right. Misha nodded, her expression professional but with a hint of understanding behind it. "Some clients want blood. You wanted fairness." That made my job easier. "Still," I replied, "couldn't have done it without you." I retrieved 2 small glasses from the cabinet and a bottle of whiskey I'd been saving. Nothing fancy, but good enough for the occasion. I poured a finger into each glass and slid one toward Misha. "To quiet victories," I said, raising my glass. "To foundations that last," she returned, and we clinked glasses. The whiskey burned pleasantly going down. Through the kitchen window I could see my workshop where a new project waited, a table for my sister's birthday. There was comfort in making things that would last, in knowing the precision of my own hands. After Misha left, I returned to the porch with the envelope tucked under my arm. The spring breeze carried the scent of fresh-cut grass and possibility. 6 months ago, I'd stood in this exact spot handing Shane a blanket and a list of shelters. Now I stood with proof that the life we'd shared was officially over. I realized then that revenge isn't what people think. It's not rage or destruction, or even punishment. Real revenge is rebuilding, creating a peace so solid that the person who betrayed you becomes irrelevant to your happiness. I looked down the empty road, the same one Shane had walked down that rainy night. She wanted a better life, I whispered to the quiet morning. She got it, and so did I. I tucked the papers away and headed toward my workshop. The familiar scent of sawdust welcomed me as I picked up my sanding block. Wood doesn't lie. It doesn't hide flaws or make excuses. It just is what it is, honest in a way people sometimes aren't. My hands found their rhythm, smoothing rough edges into something clean and true. Outside, spring continued unfurling, one sunlit moment at a time. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.